All right, and we are live with another episode of Mentor Minutes, a chance for leaders from around the world to come together, ask questions, and hopefully get some step-by-step instructions on how to get past some of those obstacles and frustrations that you're dealing with. I take the principles and the theory behind leadership and put them into actionable step-by-step plans for you to get past your obstacles and your frustrations. So if you have a question out there about leadership, about management, about workplace issues, if you've had some struggles with a particular employee, a peer, a boss, then drop them down into the comment section and I will get right to them. Now, those of you that have missed the live stream of this, not a problem. You can always drop the questions down into the comment section. I will get them on the next episode of Mentor Minutes. And if you'd like to stay anonymous, you can always email me, cm@cameronmorsey.com, or private message me, and I will get your question on the next episode and maintain your anonymity. So I'm going to dive right in as we queue up some people here. I'm going to dive right in with some questions I've received offline. First one is how to handle a situation where high visibility projects are always assigned to specific people, even if there are other better skilled people in the team. I always like to, when there's these issues with favoritism, I always like to take a step back. And I want to make sure that everybody is aware of what is going on. So I would first and foremost ask your boss or the manager. Dana, good to see you jump on here. I would ask your boss or manager why particular people were selected. You can do this in a way that's not defensive, not accusatory, just simply asking the question. And this opens up hopefully a discussion where you can talk about, well, just so you know, if this comes up again, all right, don't question the decision that they've currently made. If this comes up again, I would love to take this on because I have experience in this area, this area, this area. Too many times we get caught in our own little bubble and we think that everybody understands us, our skills, our strengths, our weaknesses, our likes, our dislikes, and that simply isn't the case. So make sure that you've gone out to your boss and expressed interest in this particular area, in those special projects. Now, the second thing that you want to do is you want to make sure that you are making yourself available as a resource, a humble secondary resource to those individuals who have been tasked with these special projects. This allows you to get some exposure to those projects. So again, you're positioning yourself to get these in the future. It'll give you some exposure to those. It'll allow you to help, and hopefully it'll give you a little bit more of a background so you can really hit the ball running next time these special projects come out. And JG, so good to see you here. So as we've had some people jump on, if you have any questions, frustrations you're dealing with, drop down in the comments section. I will tackle them in real time. That being said, I do have several that I've received offline, and that is, next one is, organizations nowadays are going from the traditional manager or a leader to coaching with team members more. Would you explain it more and any recommendations for books to read and get to know more about it? So I'm a big fan of the move from, as you say, more traditional leadership and management philosophies to more of a coaching mindset. The reason I like the coaching mindset is it dives a little bit deeper for everybody. So it dives deeper into the issues that everybody is dealing with. It allows you to be more involved in the development of your team, and that gets you better results. All right. Now, before I forget, the book that I recommend in regards to this is The Coaching Habit by Michael Bungay Stanier. Again, The Coaching Habit by Michael Bungay Stanier, S-T-A-I-N-E-R, if I'm not mistaken. I'm screwing up the middle name there, I'm sure. That's a great one to start with, The Coaching Habit. But the idea behind coaching is that you are more involved, that you are able to, with that involvement, manage the development better. A more traditional method was, hey, Cameron, you screwed up in this particular area. I need you to get better in this area. And that's not, that can be effective, but coaching allows you to customize it, I want to say, for individuals. That's the real power of it. And what you also get is you also get more of a team mindset between you and the employee. All right. Yes, they may consider you a coach, but you're both in it together. And so that allows a little bit more ownership and motivation for them to change with that, and allows you to follow up a little bit more. So big fan of the coaching aspect of things. And if you want to dive a little bit deeper, The Coaching Habit, is a great book to get to dive a little bit more into it. Felina, so good to see you here. Sarah, I know, love it as well. Dana has the next question for us. I manage teenagers, have done so for many years. I'm finding that they do not know how to take information and use it in other situations to come up with solutions. Any suggestions on how to teach that? Dana, the big and that I'm kind of processing that just a little bit, and I'm actually trying to, in my mind, process how they aren't getting those analogies. Analogies are a very human aspect of development. People look for analogies. It's one of the main things. I think that when my example that I would use for this is to look for specifics. All right, look for specific examples of how they should take information and use it in other situations. So expose it and bring that up just a little bit. So I'm sure you have a few examples that have come up recently. I would throw those out to the team as an example of what it is that you're looking for them to use. I want you to take information in one area and apply it to different areas. And I discuss this a lot when we talk about millennials, or if you're talking about teenagers, by the way, we've now moved on to Gen Z. Those are the teenagers and the people that are just hitting the workforce now, are the next generation. And what you find a lot with them is there are certain developmental things that in Gen X were handled, for baby boomers were handled before, that simply weren't handled in their childhood. And, you know, that's a shame that their parents, their teachers, whoever else didn't necessarily teach them these traits, but it is now beholden upon you as a leader and us as leaders to develop them to be effective employees. And is that a bummer? Yeah. Is it a reality? Yeah, it is. And when you have no choice, you have no choice in these things. So you just dive right in. So for your specifics, not to go off on that tangent there, but for your specifics, I would look for specific examples that you can expose to everybody, whether it's through an email, whether it's through, you know, morning stand-ups, whatever it is, and start talking about that. And just be completely transparent. They appreciate authenticity, by the way. And just say, this is an area that I would like to see most everybody improve upon, is the taking of information from one area and applying it to another. And I have a couple of examples to talk about what it is that would look like. And so you just explain those examples. Start the discussion with them and then see where it goes from there. All right. I hope that helps, Dana. Let me know if it doesn't. JG has the next question for us, and I'll be leaving a management position at one agency and starting in management in a new agency soon. What are some first steps to get this new team on board, winning their trust, etc.? JG, you're going to you probably have a number of ideas on how you want to hit the ground running, you know, maybe things that you want to change, things you want to implement, that sort of thing. I want you to set those things aside for at least a week. I want you to meet with every single one of your direct reports and maybe even some peers in the new organization, and you are going to ask them the 5 questions. What do you see going right in the organization? What do you see going wrong in the organization? Where are there opportunities we need to take advantage of? Where are there problems we need to fix? And how can I help you do your job better? Hit them with those 5 questions. And what that does is that gives you a ton of information. It helps you get up to speed quicker on what's going on in the operation, what's working, what's not working, that sort of thing. It will also give you a ton of ideas on things that you can implement that will have an immediate impact on the organization. And what that does is build that trust that you talked about. When your leader asks for your feedback, takes that feedback and then does something with that feedback, well, now that I know that I've got a leader that is going to involve me in the organization, and I have the trust that if I bring something to their attention, they're going to do something about it. And so it's a huge first step. So really, I recommend the first week, you're going to be busy, but try to meet, if you have 12 or less people, try to meet with them for just 20 minutes. Is probably all it takes. Meet with them, ask them these 5 questions. Again, just really repeating them really quick. What do you see going right in the organization? What do you see going wrong in the organization? Where are there where are there opportunities we need to take advantage of? Where are there problems we need to fix? And how can I help you do a better job? Ask those 5 questions. You're going to get a ton of stuff. Do that the first week. The second week is to take some of that stuff that they mentioned and actually put it into place. That's week 2. And I'm not even talking about the most important stuff and the big stuff that they might bring up. Really just little quick wins, low-hanging fruit, the stuff that is easy to take care of. Jump into those things first and foremost, and that'll get some great momentum going for you. But congratulations on the new job, JG, and I wish you the best. Let me know if there's anything else that I can help you with in that. Libby has our next question. Mahmood, Dana, I'm glad that worked for you. And John, good to see you on board here. I've recently started a new job and have been asked to give a presentation on Friday about myself. I've completely changed industries at 40, not sure where to begin or what they're looking for, but it needs to be 3 to 5 minutes. Any tips on where to begin? Good question. And I haven't necessarily seen this happen a lot, but I like it actually. And that may be where to start is, you appreciate the opportunity to talk a little bit more about yourself. So what you would do is you would talk very briefly about your background. All right, you've switched industries, so talk about it. Talk about education, talk about your industry, maybe even touch on some of your personal life. If you're married, if you have kids, that sort of thing. So touch on those areas. Then what I want you to do is I want you to start drawing ties between your experience and what you see in the operation. So if you're here stateside, you've got today and tomorrow to kind of look around just a little bit more and see if you can find those ties. But the way that you can phrase it is, this is what I'm most excited about joining the team here. That I can take my experience in management and leadership, of developing employees. Talk about general leadership things that you certainly have been exposed to and that are not industry specific. Developing team members, creating engagement, striving towards goals. Those are all things that translate across the board. But talk about it in a way that you are excited about. What excites me about this new role and joining this team is that I'm able to bring some of this experience that I have and bring it to the forefront of the organization and hopefully be a model for everybody else. But briefly talk about your background, education, industry. People are interested in that. Personal stuff is good as far as opening up to people. And then talk about what you are excited about in the new job. That's how I'd tackle it. You may have a little bit of experience. What I also might recommend is talk to a couple of peers that have joined the organization and ask them what they've seen that works, that resonates, that what people want out of those sessions, and maybe you get a couple of other ideas. We're talking about 3 to 5 minutes. So it's not, that may seem like a lot, but you don't actually need a ton of information for that. If you time yourself giving this little presentation, you're going to find that that those 3 to 5 minutes disappear very quickly. So you just need a few ideas. Thanks for the question, Libby, and congratulations, by the way. Morning, John and Ahmed. Good to see you here as well. I dropped my paper as I disappear for a moment that had my questions offline. So if you have questions, drop on down. I'm caught up on questions online today. So next one that comes in, I'll go ahead and take PJ's next. Recently, I've been promoted to a management position in the department I work in. I'm a bit worried about how this promotion might affect the friendships I had before accepting the promotion and how people are going to view me now. Do you have suggestions for me? Great question, PJ. Congratulations on the promotion. The balancing, I'm a big fan of being friends with your employees, at least being friendly with your employees. But there is a clear line that needs to be drawn. Now, what I'm going to tell you is that some of those friendships that you had may not survive you being their boss. So you have to make that choice. Am I going to be friends with them or am I going to be their boss? What's most important, I guess, is actually what I'm driving at. Because you want to establish clear lines. Now, what I mean by that is, and I've got plenty of experience with this back in my career, is you can go out to somebody's birthday party the night before and then write up the birthday person the next morning when you both get into work. You have to be comfortable with that, and the team member has to be comfortable with that as well. That's what I mean by those clear lines that are drawn between that. Now, what I will tell you is that you have a natural advantage already in that you've established that relationship and rapport with other individuals. Just make sure that they know that you are beholden to getting certain things done. And what you do is you use that rapport to bring them into the discussion. So it isn't you being overbearing. It is you saying, hey, Cameron, We have these goals to meet. Do you have any ideas that we didn't talk about back in the trenches about how we can meet those? I'd like to institute some of those things if you have some good ideas. And so you bring that rapport in, but you refocus the friendship onto meeting organizational goals into helping you out with that. That's the way to kind of tackle it. What you're going to find is you're going to find that people are testing you and seeing if that friendship means that they can get away with things. And you don't need to come across too harsh on it, but let them know that no, that's, you still need to show up on time. I don't care if, we spent, all this time, for years working side by side. I still need you to meet these metrics and keep referencing those basic expectations that they have. I hope that was helpful. I know that kind of rambled just a little bit there, PJ. Let me know if it wasn't clear or if you need anything else from that. Next question I received offline is, my most veteran employee is being intentionally defiant. I have addressed her behavior numerous times. Is there a way to get through to her? Nothing seems to work. I would actually, instead of addressing the behavior, I would question the behavior. So it may be a situation where you simply say, Cameron, I've noticed you being more defiant, more obstinate, voicing objections more in meetings than you used to do in the past. Is there anything going on, anything I can help with, or anything that might be causing this? I don't want you, I want your feedback. I just don't necessarily want you to be naturally defensive. And that's what I'm kind of seeing. And have a couple of specifics because they will usually ask for them. And have a couple of specifics, but try to get to the why behind it. All right. Don't look to stop the behavior. Look to cure the behavior. That would be my big thing with that. You've already brought it up, and that's the first main step. So if you see people that are being defiant or exhibiting poor behavior within your organization, you want to bring it up. You want to expose it. That takes care of half of it right there. Because two reasons bad behavior can just be minimized by 50% right away is A, they weren't aware that they were doing the behavior, so they self-correct. B, they thought they could get away with the behavior, and you just calling it out and exposing it actually diminishes that behavior as well. So call it out, but look to cure it. If they're being defiant, ask them why. Why, and use some specific examples. John's got the next question for us, and it's, I recently transferred to a new store in California from Las Vegas. Moved out of Las Vegas here in the wintertime when it gets all nice. My new store is not the same standards as my previous store. I'm finding it difficult to convince my management staff to jump on board with me to build a culture of standards and expectations. This is mostly because it's been acceptable for so long that the associates just don't care about the standards. What can I do to build a culture of standards in a new environment when you don't have the support of your upper management staff? Great question, John. So I would refer to the 5 questions I talked about before. That's a great way of getting some ideas and changing the mindset of the team. Most employees are not used to their managers asking for that sort of feedback about the organization. That might be a great first step for you. Now, when we talk about changing standards around, all right, yes, the basics of getting crystal clear on what those expectations are, what good performance looks like, what those metrics look like. Yes, getting clear on those things. But I do want, when you look to change it, I want you to look to start with the small and with the obvious. So what is an obvious standard that people aren't meeting that is relatively small? And you start there. You don't hit them with the laundry list of the 20 things that they need to change. You hit them with one thing. So you start small and you start with something obvious because you're just looking to create momentum. You're looking to change the tide from being low and poor to moving into a higher realm. So start small and start specific. Maybe it's just one thing a week. In this scenario, I always use the example of attendance. Attendance is obvious and it's relatively small. People showing up 5 minutes late, 3 minutes late, 7, 10 minutes late. It's one of those things that kind of just builds. People show up a minute late and then it's 2 minutes and it goes from there. So, but it's obvious. It's obvious that you're supposed to show up on time. Everybody knows this. They might fight it, but they always know it. Start there. Do that for 1 week and then pick something that is a little bit bigger and a little less obvious. And what happens is you can create a plan for yourself, John, where you work for the next 15 weeks. And I realize that's a ton of time. But what you don't want is a situation where you do this big push and then you fall backwards and have wasted the time. this builds that steady improvement. And what you may find is you're able to start tackling 2 things a week as you build some of that momentum. But that's really where to start, getting through to them there. I love the 5 questions, but if you're looking to change that momentum around, start small and start obvious, and then move from there. Thanks, John. Next question is, what is the right way to appreciate a staff? Should we appreciate individuals or address it to the whole team if it was an individual performance? The quick answer, I like this question. The quick answer is yes. Appreciate the individual individually. Have that sidebar conversation with them. That's good, that's personal, that helps establish rapport, and that's powerful, that one-on-one conversation. But don't be shy of occasionally calling it out to the team and giving them that public praise as well. You don't have to do this all the time, but I find that if you are in a mode of appreciating on a regular basis, then you take care of some of these smaller questions. So do both. Now, one thing I'd also say is I'd also look to broaden out the appreciation and broaden out the successes. It may be that an individual or a few individuals on the team did exceptionally well. What you can do is then talk to the team and say, hey, we've got some individuals that are doing really well and it's affecting everybody's performance. And I really appreciate that. I think the whole team is doing a really good job of supporting one another. So find ways to take individual achievement and work it towards the overall achievement as well. But slather on as much appreciation as you can, and don't be shy about doubling up on it, doing it individually and then doing it in a team environment as well. That can be helpful. Next question I have is, how can you hold employees accountable if they only show up 2 or 3 times a week? Good question, and I also get this when we're talking about different shifts. So how do you hold people accountable, or how do you coach individuals when they're working the graveyard shift and you're not there? A lot of leadership is making do with what we have available to us. The other way of phrasing this is that you are picking between multiple bad options. There is no good option. You're picking the best of the bad options. So in the case of not being able to see somebody every day, then you do with what you can. You make do with what you can. If it means that you are coaching them or holding them accountable through email, which isn't the best way, then fine. That's what you do. You make do with what you can. Now, what I do recommend is that you make the most of those times. So when we talk about graveyard shifts, you need to, once a month, work a graveyard shift, or at least work a couple of hours on a graveyard shift. What I would do oftentimes, working in the hospitality industry is obviously 24/7, I would come in early or I would stay late and catch those individuals that were coming in or leaving. So that's how I would do it. I'd adjust it and work a late shift. Not necessarily working the whole graveyard shift, because that would throw off the whole week, but that's what I would do. In the case of working 2 or 3 times a week, make sure that you are making an effort to get some face time with that individual at least once a week. Once a week is fine, especially if they're only working 2 or 3 times, if they're a part-time worker. So make the most of that time. Avail yourself of the opportunities that you have through technology that might not be your best option, and see which gets some traction. That's the way to tackle it. Vanjie, so good to see you here. Next one comes in. What's the best approach when you have an issue with a new lead? This lead is really lazy. Do I confront him of being lazy or report this to HR or the director? Always report it first. Always have that face-to-face conversation with them. Always keep it individual and within the department to start out with. You want to recognize the behaviors that are bad, and you want to give them a chance to self-correct before you've kind of taken it and escalated it above their heads. Certainly with something of, I'm trying not to use the term lazy. Certainly in regards to laziness, this is a behavior that could turn around and could be improved. Now, if we're talking about safety things or other legal issues, then yes, you would report it up the ladder. But if we're talking about strictly performance related, have the conversation first with them. All right, bring them into the office and say, hey, I've noticed this and this and this specific behavior. So talk specifics, but don't label the behavior. So I've seen you do this, and what I would prefer is that you were doing this. I've seen you do this, and I'd prefer for you to do this. And so you are calling out the specifics which lead to the actions. So they don't focus on the labels or what you might be labeling, because they can probably see through it, what you might be labeling their behavior, and you get them focused on specific actions. Now, if after multiple conversations with them about it, then it might be appropriate through some sort of progressive discipline to start escalating it beyond that. But unless there's some other personal dynamic that's going on, you should be handling it personally with them. That's the role of a leader. Not fun, but it is your job. Next question comes in from Dalton. Good to see you here. Is it better when you first take over a new team to sit back and observe, or to jump right in and start fixing problems? I've often seen when new management takes over and automatically starts fixing problems, people claim that they have a big head, or their new role is getting to their head. It's a leading question, but you and I are on the same page with this one, Dalton. No, you need to observe for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month. You need to get a feel for the new organization that you've become a part of, because the ideas that you have might be great ideas, but you don't know the environment in which to apply those ideas. And what happens is you waste time. You try to roll it out the way that you've done it before at your prior job, and it fails for any number of cultural reasons, for instance. Or system reasons. You don't have the systems backing it up. You need to observe first and foremost. Now, I've mentioned the 5 questions. If you take over, you should actually not sit back and observe. You should actively be searching for that information. 5 questions. Ask every single employee on your team, what do you see going right in the organization? What do you see going wrong in the organization? Where are there opportunities we need to take advantage of? Where are there problems we need to fix? And how can I help you do a better job? You get a ton of information, and you get a ton of practical and actionable things to work on. Work on those. Ask the questions the first week of your staff. The second week, tackle the low-hanging fruit and the easy stuff that they told you to deal with. And then with all of that information, then you can look to start implementing some of the ideas that you might have had. That's the way to tackle it the right way as a new leader. Everything can wait a week or 2. I realize that people might have been brought in to bring change to an organization, whatever, but they need to understand the battlefield before they can just roll in the tanks and the infantry to tackle those particular problems. Great question, Dalton. Hope that helped out. Next question, and this is the last one I received offline. So if you have any questions, drop down into the comment section. Otherwise, I'll be doing another one of these at noon tomorrow. But if you have questions, drop them in and I'll handle them right away. What is the best way to approach another director with concerns or ideas about their department without getting into a negative situation? I welcome feedback regarding my department, but when I bring things up about other departments, I feel like the response is just a lot of finger pointing. And you're definitely, with peers, especially peers that might be jockeying for the next promotion together, you'll get a lot of that defensiveness. What I prefer to do is not point out the thing that's wrong, and not even necessarily to point out the solution. Oh, that's another way of phrasing it. Instead of mentioning the problem, hey, have you ever thought about doing this? So you mention the solution. One thing that I would look to do is look for a way that you or your team, preferably your team, can help them in a particular area. Hey, I noticed that the invoices were doing this. Would you like my team to send, would you like me to send over one of my team to help out with that? So you look for just a little way of creating something that is not going to cause any defensiveness. Again, with so much of this stuff that we talk about, it takes perseverance. It takes a plan to switch around momentum, to switch around behavior. It's not something that you do once and it magically works. It's just not the way that it works. I want to say 99 times out of 100. That may be overstating it a little. But so you want to have a process for it. So start with something small, something that you can help with. Offer to help in a situation where they can get a benefit out of it. And maybe it's one of those things where you can help them help you. Hey, I'd love to be able to get this a little bit earlier. Can I send one of my team over to help with that so we can get it a little bit earlier? That's a way of doing it that doesn't cause any defensiveness really and helps you and helps them. And that starts the ball rolling for you to be able to have more direct conversations about solutions that you'd like to see them implement. Great question. Love that one. Abid has the next question. Oh, it's a tough one. I love these ones. What would be the ideal ways to deal with nepotism in department? How one should react to it? So, big problem with small companies where you end up with family and friends being employed is that that aspect of nepotism, which I understand why in small companies that takes place. You bring somebody in who you can trust, but there is definitely a downside to it from a morale and a perception standpoint. The big thing in regards to nepotism is to be crystal clear on what the expectations are and what the goals are for that particular individual. All right, crystal clear. So they can't use any family, any friend relations to get themselves out of it. That's the way that you handle it. There is only so much control you have, because usually it is the CEO, the president, the VP, whatever it is that is bringing those people in. So you don't necessarily have a choice in it, but you do have a choice in how you set the standards for how things are going to be done right away. Now, when they go to that individual, when you are holding this person accountable for the expectations and the goals, that's when you follow up with that VP and say, hey, just so you know, I know Cameron came to you complaining about this and this. This is how we do it in the department. This is what makes it function. This is what helps us to reach our goals. Now, I am willing to help Cameron in that, and I've offered to help, and I've actually done such and such, such and such, and such and such suggestion for them to turn their performance around, and that's what we're monitoring. But the expectations need to be there, because if I diminish the expectations for Cameron, I have to diminish the expectations for everybody, and that's not going to help us accomplish our mission. So you see that inherent in that is the challenge that you have done your job. You've been clear on the expectations, on the goals. You have coached them properly. You've been involved in their development. You have offered suggestions to them, and that gives you a strong position when you go to the VP and say, just so you know, this is what it is. And a lot of times you may even have certain situations where they come back and say, hey, I talked to Cameron, and that's not something that I need to do. Your boss said not to do that. No, you need to do that, and I'll go speak with Cameron now. But you need to go do that. So you reassert your authority in that particular situation. All right. Again, you would look to do these in specific instances. It might be one of those things where you have to pick your battles. That's fine. But make sure that you are up to the challenge of doing your job. And that's how you tackle the nepotism as well as you can. Tough situation on that. So for anybody else who's on here, if you have some questions that you think about, drop them into the comments section at any time. I'll get them on tomorrow's episode. You can always direct message me, email me, cm@CameronMorrissey.com, and I'm happy to get those on tomorrow's noon Pacific Standard Time episode of Mentor Minutes. Everybody take care out there, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.